Monday, Victory Monday, orange and blue today. How you doing, Andrew Mason?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm fired up, man. It feels good. Feels great, baby. Broncos sweep the Raiders. Very sweet.
How sweet it is.
That's right.
Or should I say, how sweet it is.
That's right.
Oh,
The Las Vegas
gosh.
Raiders undefeated in Vegas no more. Here we go, man. And of course, we got our news item to start out today. Let's go there, Mace. We're going to get into Bo Nix for everyone watching on YouTube purposes. You will get the payoff for Bo Nix talk, but Greg Dulcich let go by the Denver Broncos. Not necessarily a surprise, Mace, especially when you think about players they may have coming back.
Yeah, because if you look at the moves that are sort of potentially in the hopper here, you've got the roster deadline on Drew Sanders regarding his elevation from the physically unable to perform list. That comes up on Wednesday. The 21-day ramp-up period expires. Of course, the period expired on Delarian Turner-Yell. The Broncos didn't bring him up, so he's done for the year. You have Josh Reynolds with his 21-day ramp-up period coming off injured reserve, and that ends in another week. So one of those two, I would guess it's probably going to be Drew Sanders, since the clock is ticking right there and it's winding down. And edge rusher is one of those spots where, especially when you were making the decision to trade Baron Browning, you were looking at what you had on the roster. You were looking at that you had Dondrea Tillman, who had a couple of sacks back there against Tampa Bay in week 3. And you're also looking at Drew Sanders coming back from that Achilles. So that's the one that makes the most sense logically. And, Greg Dulcich, he'd been inactive 8 straight weeks. The Broncos seem to have a pretty workable rotation at tight end, at least for this year. And don't forget, they got Donald Parham on the practice squad. So if you have an injury at tight end, if you move on from Greg Dulcich, it's not like you don't have somebody in reserve with experience.
Yeah, experience, size, speed, and exciting prospect of Donald Parham. So, Greg, just the injuries, we know that he's fast, can't block, whatever. There's a lot of tight ends that can't block. We'll see if he lands on his feet somewhere and if he's able to stay healthy. We're rooting for the kid. Yeah.
The big thing, it's the health, obviously, of course, when you go back through his career. 46 games with the Broncos. He only played in 16 games. He missed 8 as a healthy scratch. He missed 22 games due to injury. Mostly the hamstring, but then also that foot injury that he had. Literally, if there's a moment that sums up the Greg Dulcich career in Denver, it was when he started his ramp-up period back from injured reserve last year and injured his foot on the first day back. I mean, he couldn't catch a break. But as it went into this year, he was healthy this year. I mean, he made it through OTAs fine, made it through training camp fine. But it became a roster calculus situation in regards to his production. I almost said relative to, like Sean Payton, but I caught myself. If you're going to be basically a one-way tight end, just somebody who's running routes, who doesn't really do much else. I mean, when they put him out there in protection and in run blocking, it didn't go well this year. There were some whiffs there on the tape in the first 4 games. So if basically you're going to be a situational tight end and a rotational guy and not a starter, you better play special teams. Like backup tight ends play special teams. Greg Dulcich didn't. Lucas Kroll, who came in for him, was no less productive. He's been more productive, actually, than Greg Dulcich. And he plays special teams. He's had a big play on special teams back there against Carolina, where he knocked the punt out of the end zone to force them to start deep in their own territory. So that was a big part of why Greg Dulcich didn't get a jersey last 8 weeks, is because that third tight end has got to play on teams, and Greg Dulcich didn't.
Yep. Perhaps, Mason, I may be overstepping my bounds, but I am a habitual line stepper. It was one of the blind spots for George Payton because of the UCLA connection. I'm just looking back over that draft class, 19 tight ends taken. And I look at players that we regularly, well, from a fantasy specter, like you're starting Cade Otton on a weekly basis. He was a 4th-round pick. Daniel Bellinger's flash a little bit. Jake Ferguson, when he's healthy, make plays after plays for the Cowboys. Chiggy Okonkwo just had a 70-yard receiving touchdown Sunday, a day ago. And Chiggy was a guy that we loved at the Shrine game. Yeah. So, yeah, some other guys, Drew Ogletree or Grant Calcaterra's flashed a little bit. So, yeah, not everybody's a hit. But I look at Cade Otton, Jake Ferguson, Isaiah Likely, and Chiggy Okonkwo. Miss, and miss. All 4th-rounders, by the way.
Yeah, and of course, Dulcich in the 3rd rounder. The Isaiah Likely one is the one that gets me because I remember covering that draft and going through my guys and thinking, okay, I mean, you need a tight end here in the 3rd round. Likely fits the bill, man. I mean,
it would have been beautiful.
Yeah, you're talking about a bunch of guys who've been productive over the course of their careers. You've got 2 tight ends picked ahead, or 1 tight end picked ahead of Greg Dulcich, and then 4 of them behind in that draft class that have had over 1,000 receiving yards so far. Trey McBride was before him. The Broncos like Trey McBride. It's an interesting kind of what if there. They were interested in moving up for McBride, but remember, this was the first draft affected by the Russell Wilson trade. Didn't have the ammunition to get from pick 64, which of course they got in the Von Miller deal. And they stood pat. They took Nick Bonito. Sometimes the best deals are the ones you don't make. They stood pat, took Nick Bonito, and they feel pretty good about that. And you ought to feel great about that right now.
Oh, yeah.
Dulcich was tight end 3. The tight end immediately ahead of him was Jelani Woods, who really has not launched to this point. But then you mentioned that 4th round into the 5th, in that 4th round, and there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tight ends picked in the 4th round, and 4 of them have over 1,000 receiving yards for their career. So there were good players to be had, helpful players to be had. Unfortunately, the Broncos missed. It happens. Nobody bats 1,000 in the draft. But it's tough when you see those names there. Yes. When you see Cade Otton and you see Isaiah Likely, like, man, they would have really helped out this team.
Yes. And I just get a little nervous when Bruins come up. Like, not Latu, whatever.
Latu.
How about Bo Nix? How about Bo Nix?
Let's feel good.
Man alive. 12 games, Mason. I wanted to see 12 games. He's way further than I had ever even imagined, further than you had imagined, further than everyone except maybe himself and maybe Sean Payton, but he might be exceeding even Sean Payton's expectations.
Yeah. And the thing that we're seeing now, it's going to another level, is winning in different ways. And I thought, let's start with the Sean Payton soundbite from today, because you went up against a team that went heavy up front, brought some blitzes. The success equation for Bo Nix in this game became different. This was not going to be metronomic Bo Nix. This was going to be, well, you look at the start of the game, he went, I believe, 2 for 5, 2 for 6 to open the game, right? But those 2 were nice plays downfield to Devon Vele and Courtland Sutton that moved the chains. So he didn't reach the 60% threshold, but it didn't mean he wasn't effective. He didn't mean he wasn't effective. Had one of his highest average per attempt figures of the season with a 7.6 average per attempt. It's just that now Bo Nix can take a different path to get to the destination that you're looking for, which is success. Here's Sean Payton.
Now, which one is this, Mace? Just behind the scenes?
On Nix.
Nix versus Raiders, or not just QB difference?
It's Nix versus Raiders. Nix, yeah.
Here we go.
I wouldn't have guessed yesterday going in with the corner injuries that the Raiders had, we were going to get that much cover zero or blitz pressure. We thought we'd get a lot more zone coverage, and it was actually the opposite. So yesterday quickly became a game where, it wasn't going to be a 72% completion type of game because they were in soft zone. It was going to be chunks, or incomplete. And I think a lot of times it's dictated. I think two answers to your question. I think it's dictated sometimes by the defensive scheme of that play. And then secondly, certainly his confidence as you continue to see him grow.
Lots of confidence, lots of growth from Bo Nix this year.
Lots of growth, and the thing that you like now is that when you force him into a situation that maybe isn't in his comfort zone, he's still able to make plays. I mean, we don't, obviously, you and I have talked about the footwork, and one of the things we've said is, especially you go back a month and a half ago, the footwork wasn't consistent in the pocket. Now, sometimes you're going to have to throw off balance, and it's nice that Bo Nix has that tool on his belt. You don't want it in the pocket, but you do need to be able to do some things when you get beyond structure. And we saw some beyond structure moments yesterday where he's throwing across his body, where he's throwing off balance, and he's got a great deal of accuracy. Again, if you see it in the pocket, that's where you get concerned. You want him to be fundamentally sound with his feet. But when things are breaking down, you also need to have the ability to leap beyond structure and do some things athletically. Bo Nix does not get enough credit for his natural athleticism. We saw that even though it wasn't a game where he was taking off and running a great deal, we saw that in terms of his mobility and some of the throws that he was making off platform.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Kids growing, kids getting better and looking good out there. And man alive, I love to see it. You love to see Bo Nix also showing that fire. That's what you want. You want the crazy eyes. You want the I'm afraid of nothing. I think that's what he said. There's varying degrees of what people say out there, Mace, of what I don't fear anything. I don't fear nothing. But just that look, Mace, that sums it up right there.
Or either that, or it looks like the reaction that Clark Griswold had when he found out that Cousin Eddie was coming over for Christmas.
Crapper's full, Vegas. Need to change it out. Yeah, love it.
By the way, I've never found a casino like the one that Cousin Eddie and Clark go to in Vegas Vacation, where you can play pick a number. War. I'm great at that. Coin toss.
And away we go. Bo Nix getting passes batted down to the line of scrimmage, Mace. I'm going to ask you a question. I already know the answer. Do you have your stopwatch? Because when I was asked today by one Josh Dover on the Fan, he said, why is he getting his passes batted at the line of scrimmage? I said, I think it's timing. So I haven't timed him yet. But I would imagine that the Raiders were coached to go 1, 2, get your hands up. 1, 2, get your hands up. And I would imagine that all three of those batted passes, the seconds between snap to batted pass, were probably very close. I don't, it's not Bo being short. It's not Bo not finding the right passing lane. I just think it's a fact that there's a rhythm to this offense. And if you know it, you know when the pass is coming. And it was a good job. Troutman I believe on the last batted pass, Mace, Troutman didn't engage with his man. He was more catching, like trying to wait for his man. And the guy never engaged with Troutman. He just got up and knocked the pass down. So maybe if Troutman gets a little contact there, that disrupts it. But for me, that's my guess right now, Mace. I'll time him, but I think it's a timing thing.
It's something to which you're going to have to adjust because you may see more of that going forward.
Yep.
And if you were familiar with what Bill Kolar taught his defensive linemen when he was Broncos defensive line coach, that was a big thing. If you can't get to the quarterback in the pass rush, stay back and get your hands up. I mean, it's why Shelby Harris became so terrific while he was here at getting his hands up and knocking down passes. Oh, by the way, you're going to see Shelby Harris in a week. So I expect you're going to see Cleveland mimic some of this conceptually, and certainly that's something to keep your eye on, that one of the league's best over the last decade at batting down passes at the line is going to be right there across from Bo Nix there on Monday Night Football in 7 days. So this is something that I would reckon is going to be a point of emphasis. The Broncos, they get a little bit of a kind of a bonus thing on Thursday. They're not going to do a full day on Thanksgiving, but they're going to, as Sean Payton spelled out, Wednesday is going to be like a normal Wednesday. Friday is going to be like a normal Thursday. Saturday is going to be like a normal Friday. But they're going to do just a little something on Thursday to kind of keep everybody in tune before scattering for the holiday. And maybe that's the kind of thing you work on with even just an extra hour on the practice field like you might get on Thursday. Is something to kind of underscore that and get Bo Nix adjusted to it. Because when something works, and for the Raiders, it did work for a while on Sunday.
Yeah.
You're going to see it again.
Our friend Eric Doule saying Nix and Peyton Manning are the only Broncos quarterbacks with 8+ passing touchdowns and 0 INTs over a 3-game span since at least 1970. And Nix and Dak Prescott are the only rookies to ever do it. And by the way, the most games this season with 200 passing yards or more, 2 touchdowns or more, and 0 picks. There have been 5 for Bo Nix and 5 for Lamar Jackson.
Not bad. There's also something, it's more than just the last 3 games for Bo Nix as well. If you go with rookie quarterbacks with at least 15 touchdowns and 2 or fewer interceptions over 10 games since week 3, there are only 2 who've done that. That's Bo Nix and Dak Prescott. No one else in NFL history has done that.
Wow.
And there are some that see that, I don't want to be like Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's had a really good career. Now, maybe you'd like more playoff success, but I think there are bigger things in play in Dallas than just Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
He's had a terrific career, and if Bo Nix has a career individually that looks like that of Dak Prescott, you know what? There's going to be more team accomplishments because I think he's got a better head coach whispering in his ear.
Well, they have a better ownership. Sorry, Jerry.
No, they do.
It's just the truth.
And better general manager.
It's just the truth.
Yeah, Jerry Jones is a bad general manager. I mean,
very much so.
Because he is the GM. Is there any other GM in sports that would keep their job if you go 28 seasons without making at least the semifinals of the league, whether you call it the conference championship game, conference finals, whatever? Dallas has not even made a conference championship game in the previous 28 seasons. It's going to be 29. And Jerry Jones somehow still has his job.
Mm-hmm.
That's absurd. So, yeah, I feel very strong in saying that if Bo Nix's career individually looks like that of Dak Prescott, the team's success for the Broncos will be far greater than that of the Dallas Cowboys with Dak Prescott.
Yep. You're not sacking Bo Nix either. And by the way, the Dak thing annoys me. If I don't want Dak Prescott, oh God, watch football. I'll get off of that quickly, or else I will get derailed because that really pisses me off, Mace.
All things being equal, would 2/3 of the teams in the NFL take Dak Prescott right now?
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Why are we talking about dumb stuff? I wish I could say something else, but either way, I'll get away from that because I had a first-round grade on Dak. Sorry, I like Dak Prescott.
Isn't it interesting though that to talk about that, knowing how there was a possibility of Dak Prescott being here in Denver?
Oh yeah, for sure.
If the Broncos don't pull off the Paxton Lynch trade, even though Dak missed the flight, Dak's probably a Bronco.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Probably a Bronco.
Plays his rookie.
Probably a Bronco at the end of round 2.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I wanted Chris Jones and Dak Prescott. That was my mock draft for the Broncos.
Oh, golly.
So I know I get painted as the Paxton guy.
Wow.
which is fine because I'd rather play the first rounder than play Trevor Siemian. That's just me. Find out faster. That's just me. But I wanted Chris Jones and I wanted Dak Prescott. That was my mock for Denver. So either way, I'll get away from that.
It's
eventually.
okay. It's
but you're not sacking Bo Nix. That's the thing. You're not sacking Bo Nix. You're not getting to him. Max Crosby hunts quarterbacks for a living. He can't get to Bo Nix.
First time Max Crosby in a while has played the Broncos and not gotten a sack. It didn't mean he wasn't impactful because he was
everywhere.
He was a wrecker in the run game and he was generating pressure. Max Crosby had as great a game as a pass rusher can have without finishing with a sack as I've ever seen. Like just he remains a problem. That I put out a stat over the weekend on sack rate and on sacks by somebody against the Broncos over the years, and you could argue Max Crosby has been the most dominant edge rusher against the Broncos ever.
Yep.
And you know what? He didn't get Bo Nix on Sunday. He'll get Bo Nix in the future. Again, he'll get him on the ground. It'll happen.
Sure.
So doesn't mean anything bad. I mean, Max Crosby is all he's doing is clicking off mile markers on his road to Canton.
My goodness.
Yeah, another guy who's going to click off some mile markers. It's very early to say this, and I think it's a credit to the Broncos. Brock Bowers, who already has the Raiders single season rookie receiving record, he is probably going to have 100 receptions this year as a rookie, as a tight end.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked what the Broncos did to contain him, especially working shorthanded without Zach Allen up front in the pass rush, without Riley Moss there for the second half of the game. It didn't deter the Broncos from putting Pat Surtain on Brock Bowers in some big moments, and that worked.
I loved it.
It may be something you have to continue going forward because you're going to see Brock Bowers twice a year. Maybe get used to those moments where you've got PS2 on Bowers. But it wasn't just him, and this is another thing. It takes a village to contain Brock Bowers. It was, Brandon Jones getting involved as well, PJ Locke getting involved. It was really a very good game from Vance Joseph in that specific regard, countering Brock Bowers. If you are frustrated with anything, the Raiders did get more yards than you'd like between the tackles on the ground. That may simply be you miss Zach Allen, and you hope you can get Zach Allen back as soon as you can because his absence was very much felt on Sunday.
Very much so. Super quick behind the scenes because Ren's like, do you guys plan on doing a show on upcoming? Yes. But we're talking Bo, and Bo's algorithm friendly. I'll go full disclosure. Like, people search on YouTube for Bo Nix. Apologies to Garett Bolles, but no one's searching on YouTube for Garett Bolles. So we're going to cover the Broncos better than anyone else out there because we've been doing it basically since the inception of the show. No humble brag, just truth. So, yes, all of these shows that you want and these other topics of discussion, we're coming off a Raiders win, man. We're going to talk Bo Nix. Bo Nix is playing outstanding football.
Well, that's the whole thing. You're going to see the slide on YouTube as this show gets archived. It's going to be Bo Nix, and the title has Bo Nix. Cecil and I were texting about it. I'm like, should we do Greg Dulcich? I'll have one ready. And you went on the algorithm thing. Like, we got to do Bo Nix. But I think that was the needle to thread. We keep Bo Nix in the title, but you have to lead with Greg Dulcich today. That's the breaking news item. That's the breaking news. And you got to and with Bo Nix, and to go back to the original title of the show here, it's also where the potential return of Josh Reynolds here in the next week and a half as his ramp-up period ends is interesting because Josh Reynolds will come back to a scenario that's different than when he left. And I don't think Josh Reynolds is getting his wide receiver 2 spot back. I think that's going to be Devon Vele now.
I don't think he should get it back, Mace. It's production-based business.
Devon Vele has become Tim Patrick.
Mm-hmm. Think about that.
And we talked about this when the move went down. There were a lot of factors that went into cutting Tim Patrick. One of them was the belief based on the injury history that he wouldn't get back to where he was before. The other is if you gave Devon Vele reps, where would he be by the end of the season? And remember, I mean, he missed 4 games in there, probably didn't need to miss that many. It was a sort of a weird thing going on. But Devon Vele is basically becoming Tim Patrick, maybe even a more productive version of Tim Patrick. And the original vision when I asked Sean about the vision for the day 3 picks there on draft weekend, he brought up Tim Patrick of his own volition. So
the name he brought up today, though, Mace, when you texted me, I was
this
on
is
the air.
bigger.
You were on the call. I think I said it on the post game last night. I'm like, I don't want to use this name, but Sean has used it. So now I guess we can use it. I don't know. Is it thumbs up, green light, Mace?
He compared Devon Vele to the most productive wide receiver he's ever had as a head coach. The most productive wide receiver in the history of the New Orleans Saints. And oh, by the way, a 7th round pick like Devon Vele. Marcus Colston, when he dropped that bomb, I had to text you because it was funny. The whole thing of how it went down this morning. I asked Sean Payton a question about Devon Vele and the vision and all that. At first, I think Sean was he admitted he was kind of had running backs on his mind. So he answered the question about Arctic Estimate. I think we're going to get into that tomorrow. It was a good answer there on that as well.
Yeah.
But then he kind of caught himself. He's like, you asked about Vele, right? And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then he said this.
The progress with Vele is sometimes as a coach, you feel like you're stopping the progress by not getting them touches. And now, I don't want to say we're guilty as coaches, but oftentimes afraid to play the rookies, and very quickly we've seen his growth. So, he's been really good. The strengths for him certainly are his hands. You guys saw it in camp. He's got strong hands in traffic. He's a guy that plays well over the middle. He reminds me a lot of Marcus Colston, who I had in New Orleans, for 10 or 11 years. And, you know, just, in our staff meeting 20 minutes ago, I said, we got to continue to find touches for him. And so you've got a big target. I mentioned this to you guys. He's 6'4", but he's got a short inseam, so he's someone that can get in and out of cuts. And I'm glad to see. I'm glad we're not getting towards the end of the season and not knowing about some of these rookies.
There's a lot to unpack there.
There's a ton to unpack, especially with the last sentence.
Yeah. I mean,
because last year they didn't get to see their rookies, Riley Moss, JL Skinner, etc. Like this year they are.
And some of it's by necessity because of the $53 million crater in this year's salary cap because of Russell Wilson. So you had to rely on rookies. Think back to last year. I mean, the Rams had to play Puka Nacua a lot. They didn't really have a choice. Found someone who's an absolute stud. He said, I don't want to say we're guilty as coaches, but oftentimes afraid to play the rookies. He said that early, and then said he's not glad he's getting toward the end of the season and isn't at a point where he doesn't know about the rookies. Okay, there's a lesson going forward here, right? Trust the kids.
It's
Don't
okay.
be afraid. It's okay if you believed in these guys enough to take a shot on them. Believe in their ability to figure it out with experience.
Yes. Believe in your coaching and your development of them. I'll use a Sam Kinison line, Mace. I will clean it up because it's a Sam Kinison line. But if you draft the rookie, why aren't you trusting the rookie?
You selected him.
You picked him, and everyone had 2 rounds higher grades, according to Sean. Troy Franklin was a 2nd-round pick for them. Ostrek Estime was a 3rd-round pick for them. Devon Vele obviously was a 5th-round pick for them. You had higher grades. Play him.
Yeah. He said and as he said, the staff meeting, quote, we got to continue to find touches for him, unquote, which is, again, very interesting. We talk about Josh Reynolds being eligible to come off of injured reserve here and the Broncos having to make a decision in the next 9 days on that.
Mm-hmm.
Man. And then Marcus Colston, man, that was like, whoa, when he said that. That's why very rare. I don't think I've texted you during any of his conference calls when you're on the air until now. Until that, I heard that because I knew if I told you that, hopefully you check your phone and you would run with it on the air as soon as you could.
Yes.
How soon did you get to that? Okay.
I did.
You basically, wow. Okay. Because that's not a comp that he throws around lightly. That's, as was said about the late Herb Brooks, that he throws around compliments like manhole covers.
It's true.
That's the kind of comp that Sean Payton makes like a manhole cover. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
They go, there are certain guys that he had in New Orleans. Colson's one of them that if you make that comp, it's pretty breathtaking on it. So, of course, the other interesting thing is you have Courtland Sutton figuring out that cohesion with Bo Nix too. So, I mean, I guess, we've talked about Courtland Sutton maybe being a cap casualty this offseason. He had the restructure that gave him more incentives. But you can keep Court around if you want to.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And when you see it from Courtland Sutton on the field, you see the cohesion that's there. He had the 2 touchdowns yesterday. When you hear Courtland Sutton talking like this as well, and he's on pace for his first 1,000-yard season in 5 years, maybe this makes you start thinking, okay, it's the Court and Devon show, and these are the 2 that might be your receivers. And is it really wise to pull the rug out from under the progress of this offense and move on from Courtland Sutton? From what we're seeing, and then when he says stuff like this, we're going to play the comment here, maybe you ought to go thinking about Courtland Sutton as a long-term target for Bo Nix. Here's Court after Sunday's game.
I mean, I tell you guys each week that, I feel like we're getting closer, and it's not perfect and it's not there yet, but it's getting closer. And I think that the beautiful thing is that, through time, we continue to find those connections, continue to find what works best for both of us. And I think that it's gonna be something special. We've been able to do some things, and I think that we're scratching the surface of it. It's not all the way there yet, which is an exciting thing. That's why I keep smiling about it, because we're not all the way there yet, and we're already starting to be able to see some success with the connection. And ultimately, I feel like through time and through continued just reps, in-game reps. You can do it in practice all day, but in-game reps and us being able to get on the same page is ultimately going to be able to get us, more success, I feel like.
Scratching the surface, Mace, and a few numbers for people out there, because everyone focuses on the 10 touchdowns with Russell Wilson. It's 5 this year and 5 to go. So it's unlikely that he reaches double-digit touchdowns, which, touchdowns, ask any fantasy GM. Touchdowns are the most difficult thing to predict, and they vacillate. But listen to this. Last year, 59 catches. This year, with 5 games to go, 57 catches. Last year, 772 yards. This year, 744 yards. He's almost matched, touchdowns aside, last year's total season numbers. He's matched that in 12 games.
Here's another thing. I think we can say Bo Nix starts to become Bo Nix in Tampa in week 3. Okay. The 10-game sample size I spoke of with saying he's had a 10-game run that only Dak Prescott has had as a rookie quarterback in NFL history. Okay. If you take those 10 games and prorate out Courtland Sutton over a full 17-game season, here's what you'd have. 88 catches, 1,159 yards, 8.5 touchdowns.
It's great.
Yeah. That's impressive.
Mm-hmm. He's not our number one. Well, he's their number one.
Yeah. And, okay, maybe your wide receiver one doesn't have to be an elite level. Maybe if you've got support elsewhere, it just has to be that guy is pretty good. If you have Devon Vele rising as a guy who can make some tough catches, who can, run the slant routes, who can, basically help you matriculate it down the field in the parlance of the late Hank Stram, it's good enough to work. I mean, can you imagine a tight end with this? Like a top level pass catching tight end. Can you imagine Tyler Warren of Penn State drafted with those two?
Gonna have me going Ashley Schaefer BMW on this whole show, Mace. Keep dropping those things.
So you're a Tyler Warren fan too, huh?
Well, I will say this, and I've said this on the air. I'll repeat myself because that's what I often do. Tight ends take 3 years. They're not all Brock Bowers. So I'm leaning more towards Ashton Gente, where you're going to be at in the first round, because a running back, bam, unless your name's Thomas Jones, you should be able to star right away if you're that dude. Maybe you could include Kyron Williams, but Williams wasn't a first-round pick the way Thomas Jones was for the Cardinals back in the day. So I want the guy that can help Bo now, not the guy that in 3 years he'll be a Pro Bowler. Not everyone's Brock Bowers. I'm not saying Warren's not, but for tight ends, we just know there's a ramp-up period because you're basically learning two positions.
Yes. But I think it's also wise to play the long game. As much as I like Janty, it's the positional value of running back in the first round.
There's only this year's class, I would say, Mace, and I'm sorry for interrupting.
And the attrition rate of running backs.
This year's class, there's like 15 actual first rounders. So where you're drafting, you're not going to get an actual first rounder. And that's the way most years are. Last year was different because of all the quarterbacks, but most years about half of the first round isn't really a first round graded player.
Is Janty a first rounder in your mind?
I think so. I think he's a top 10 pick.
Okay. He is. Tyler Warren.
Not quite Jonathan Taylor, but
yeah. See, I'd say Tyler Warren and Janty both are in terms of talent. They're first rounders. But it is harder to find. Look how many swings the Broncos have had to make at tight end. It's harder to find than a running back. It's the scarcity of it.
I could make the argument as well, Mason. This is our pre-draft show.
Yeah.
Give me that mid-round tight end. Okay. Travis Kelce, George Kittle, third rounders. Actually, Kittle was a fifth rounder?
Fifth rounder.
It was after Jake Butt. So it's like, I get it. First round tight end sounds sexy. But for me, we just went over Isaiah Likely, Chiggy Okonkwo, Jake Ferguson, right? And Jake could make plays for the Cowboys when he's healthy. But give me that mid-round tight end, man. That's what I like.
I say give me the mid-round running back.
Well, our good buddy Dan Brugler said the rounds 2 and 3, there's probably going to be double-digit running backs taken in those rounds.
Again,
don't be surprised.
So you're talking about it's a good year for tight ends, but running back has a plethora of guys. I mean, honestly, I'm watching Devin Neal on Saturday slice up the Buffs, and that would look pretty good in Denver.
So Warren and Neal, 1 and 2.
You can get Neal on day 2.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Warren and Neal would be transformative for this offense together.
That'd be big. That would be big.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I mean, you're getting into pick your poison territory here. And with Warren, I think the blocking may take some time to come, but I think you can get him up to speed as a pass catcher pretty fast. And the question is can you live with the bumps as he grows as a blocker? And say, okay, let's get this aspect there, because there's a dynamic element from tight end that the Broncos would like to have, but haven't had. And he's got the willingness to block. We're not talking about Noah Fant here, okay? We're just seems a little bit shy about getting his body in there. That's not the case with him. But how did this turn into a draft show?
Because we're always this close to turning it into a draft show. I'll bring it back a little bit because Marky Sports in the chat room brings up this. Haven't got up a Lucas Kroll. Don't think he's got enough chances. I will disagree with that. It's the mental errors with Kroll. That's what keeps him off any sort of chances. Like he's a good player. He had a great mini camp. Yes, I'm going to play the Sean Payton GIF, whatever. But when he makes those mental mistakes, this is what Sean Payton does. And he makes a lot of mental mistakes. We're Lucas Kroll fans. We love Lucas Kroll. But he's had his chances. It's almost time for Donald Parham to get a chance.
Yeah, and actually Kroll doesn't have a catch in the last 2 games either.
Which is interesting that they would cut Greg Dulcich when it's not like Kroll's been tearing it up, the guy that took his spot.
I mean, the bar was pretty low for Kroll to clear in terms of pass catching productivity compared to Greg Dulcich and the way Dulcich started this season, because Dulcich had 28 yards on 5 catches in 4 games. So he was averaging 7 yards a game. Lucas Kroll is averaging 12 yards a game.
Yep. Yeah. Rickus Rick says, I'm surprised they didn't get a 7th for Dulcich. No one would trade for him. Just injuries, man.
Yeah. They were, it's been reported, it's been out there. There was a willingness to move, and you have a lot of discussions. I mean, at the trade deadline, it's often a question of who isn't in at least a discussion at some point, right? But it didn't work out. You think he comes back to the practice squad, or do you? Because honestly, I do wonder, like, if Greg Dulcich doesn't just look at this in this much the same way as Jalen Virgil and Brandon Johnson at wide receiver, and say, I'm gonna cast my line elsewhere.
Yeah, I don't think there's any sort of bad blood. So if he does, I wouldn't be surprised. But if you're Greg, why not just get a fresh start?
Yeah.
He's got talent. There's no doubt he's an NFL talent. It's just he can't stay healthy and he doesn't block.
Yeah. Go to, there are teams down there at the bottom of the standings. I mean, there may be opportunities for playing time. And again, it's not like the Broncos aren't covered with a tight end in reserve if they have an injury, because that's the advantage of having Donald Parham. So I think that was another reason why you make the move. If Greg Dulcich doesn't come back, it's not like you don't have somebody in the stable who can step in. So.
All right, Mace, let's wrap up today's show. What do you got a flight to catch there, baby, right?
Back from Vegas, gonna grab some dinner, an early dinner here in a bit, and then catch the flight tonight. All the while, I'll be working on my numbers piece for denversports.com, which you'll see probably go up overnight, so I can go talk about it with Mike Evans, Brand Stokely, and Mark Schlereth tomorrow morning at 9:30 Mountain Time on the radio side. And then,
it's always a fun spot to catch out your numbers piece with those guys. Our buddy Jason, our pot stoner degenerate in the chat room, said he wants a doggy bag from Bouchon Bistro. So
yeah, I can't really and when you're traveling, it's a little tough to bring back food. So it's just whatever I eat, and the rest it's gonna have to go. So I'll try to be sensible here.
Okay, sensible in Vegas.
I haven't gambled, and I haven't.
You don't gamble.
I haven't gambled, and I haven't had a drink harder than Coca-Cola Zero. So,
okay,
yeah,
I have water for me today.
I have been downright monastic here in Vegas.
Somebody's a good guy, and it's not me. It is Andrew Mason, our little angel. Andrew Mason, look at him; he's all grown up. Oh, what a show, man. What a win. What a win, baby. Like
7-5. 2 games above 500 after 12.
Where are they going, do you think? I mean, I've always said 9. Looks like 10.
I said 7, so I'm about to be wrong here.
Unless they go on 5.
I hope I'm not. Yeah, I hope my prediction isn't wrong. I mean, I said 7. I thought I was on the high end.
Super quick, what's changed then?
Bo ahead of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to go targeted it with your moves in free agency because you had limited cap resources. And you hit. Brandon Jones hit. JFM in the trade hit. Really miracle that the Jets had him available, but the Jets were in such a mess. Malcolm Roach hit. I mean, Brandon Jones, you had Sean Payton talking today about how he likes the safety play better this year than last year.
We'll get into that on tomorrow's show.
Yes.
Safeties and running backs tomorrow, and Bo Nix for the algorithm.
But these guys, like they nailed their offseason, even with not having the cap resources that you should usually have. They had to make targeted moves. Sometimes being forced into a less than ideal situation can bring the best out of you. But that's the thing. The Broncos basically bat 1,000 with their moves. And I don't expect a team to ever bat 1,000.
No. You have to be more precise.
Yeah. And that's why, and that's why when Sean Payton says it's more than just the quarterback, he's right. It was all of it. Now the quarterback is the biggest thing, and Bo Nix has matured and grown maybe more quickly than I anticipated. But it was also all these moves on the fringes of things being hits.
We'll see.
Nice job.
Keep coming for the Denver Broncos. Mace, I'm going to clean up and go to the Knicks and Nuggets game. You're going to fly home, and we're going to get a Christmas bonus if they could get about 500 more YouTube subscribers. What's our current number? Our up to the minute number, Mace. You can do math. I cannot, but we need to know that number because we're getting there. You guys have really responded. Really.
I only get it like in multiples of 100 here, so it's 15,500.
Okay. I will look right now.
You have the exact number. I don't.
Oh, okay. The number is 15,523. So the math is what, Mace?
477.
477 is the
number.
I
know there are 477 of you out there who are just itching to subscribe, to subscribe to our channel, to find out when we're live, when we have a new show. You can't wait. You need it. You need it. You crave it. You want it. So just go ahead and subscribe.
Help us out on YouTube.
Give us a Merry Christmas.
Please. It's good. It's good. We got a great audience, Mace. We got a great show. We've got a great friendship. We built a lot here. So let's celebrate that by helping us out on YouTube. How can they do that?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never miss
a vid. That's right. He's Andrew Mason. Follow him on the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned. And would you please, as always, stay frosty, baby.